Story 1. I've never really been the type to tell scary stories. I always figured that they were either made up or exaggerated to death, but what happened last July at Miller's Lake, I can't explain it away, and I can't stop thinking about it. It's taken me almost a year to even write this down because it still feels like if I talk about it too much, it might notice. It was supposed to be a simple summer getaway. My friends and I, 4 of us total, had rented this old fishing cabin on Miller's Lake, about 2 hours from the city. No cell service, no Wi-Fi, but the rental site said it had solar power, a small dock, and plenty of peace and quiet. That last part was what sold me. The group was me, my girlfriend Emily, my best friend Kyle, and his girlfriend Jess. We were all in our late 20s, all tired from work, and all overdue for a weekend with nothing but beer, fishing poles, and late-night campfires. The drive up was beautiful rolling farmland, then winding roads that cut through dense pine. The cabin was exactly as advertised. 1 story, green metal roof, paint peeling on the siding, but solid. It sat about 50 yards from the lake's edge, with a short path down to the dock. The woods pressed in thick on 3 sides. Inside, it was basic, but cozy mismatched furniture. A little wood stove, 2 bedrooms, and a screened-in porch with a view of the water. We dumped our bags, opened beers, and decided we'd swim before dinner. The lake water was warm, the kind that feels like it's been baking in the sun all day. We stayed out until the lights started to fade, then headed back to make a fire. That was when I noticed the first odd thing. There was a man standing at the far ends of the dock. He wasn't moving, just standing there, hands in his pockets, looking out at the lake. From where I was, I could only see the back of him. Short brown hair, dark t-shirt, jeans. I thought maybe it was a neighbor from another cabin, but when I called out, "Hey!" he didn't react. Nay, Emily glanced over her shoulder and frowned. "Do you know him?" I shook my head. Kyle yelled, "Nice evening, huh?" Nothing. The man just stayed there another 10 seconds, then walked off into the trees. Weird, sure, but not enough to ruin the night. We ate, drank, told stories until the fire died down. I figured maybe he was just a local who didn't want to be bothered. That night, though, I woke up at 3:17 a.m. I know the time because there's a little battery clock on the nightstand, glowing faintly green. I don't know what woke me, no loud noise, no dream, just the prickling sense that something wasn't right. The cabin was dead quiet. No wind, no creaks, no insect noise. Then, from outside, I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, moving from the dock toward the cabin. Gravel crunching underfoot, 1 step at a time. I sat up, heart pounding, trying to convince myself it could be Kyle. But the steps didn't turn toward the porch. They circled the cabin. 1, 2, pause. 1, 2, pause. I held my breath. They stopped right outside my bedroom window and stayed there. I couldn't see anything through the curtain, just a faint dark shape. After maybe 20 seconds, the steps started again, moving away toward the woods. The next morning, I told the others. Kyle laughed it off, said maybe it was a deer. Emily didn't say much, but I could tell she didn't buy that explanation. We spent the day fishing, swimming, and hiking. Nothing weird. By dinner, I'd almost convinced myself it had been my imagination. Almost. The second night was worse. Around midnight, we were all on the porch playing cards when we heard it. A long, low whistle from the direction of the dock. We all froze. It wasn't a bird, it wasn't wind, it was too human. Probably just someone calling their dog, Jess said, but her voice had that tight edge to it. Kyle stood up and looked toward the water. "Don't see anyone." The whistle came again, the same tone, same length, and then faintly a splash. "Let's just go inside," Emily said. I woke again at exactly 3:17 a.m. This time it wasn't footsteps. It was whispering. 2 voices, low and urgent, right outside the wall behind our bed. I couldn't make out words, just the rhythm back and forth, like a conversation. I shook Emily awake. She sat up, listened, and went completely still. The whispers stopped. Then something brushed against the wall, dragging slowly from one corner to the other. We didn't sleep after that. By the third day, the mood had shifted. We stayed together, even for quick trips to the dock. I noticed Jess scanning the tree line a lot. Kyle was quieter than usual. We agreed to leave the next morning instead of Sunday night. That evening, we kept the fire going later than usual, trying to avoid going inside. But eventually, exhaustion won, and we all turned in. I tried to stay awake, I really did, but at some point I drifted off. When I opened my eyes, it was 3:17 a.m. again. The room smelled faintly of lake water, that warm, algae-heavy smell. And there was someone standing in the doorway. They were just a silhouette against the dim light from the porch night bulb. Tall, still, head tilted slightly, like they were studying us. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. After maybe 5 seconds, they stepped backward into the hallway. I heard the front door open. By the time I got the courage to get up and check, the door was shut. We left at first light. None of us said much on the drive back. When we dropped Emily at her place, she noticed something on the back bumper of my car, a wet handprint. 5 fingers, too long, palm too narrow. It was gone the next time I looked. I've since looked up every record I can find on Miller's Lake. There are stories, but they're vague fishermen going missing, campers hearing voices, footprints where there shouldn't be any. I haven't told Emily that every few weeks, I wake up at 3:17 a.m. for no reason. And I swear some nights I hear the low whistle just outside the bedroom window. Story 2. I grew up in a small town in Kentucky where summer nights meant sitting on porches and listening to cicadas until the air cooled enough to breathe. Back then, we thought we knew every inch of the county, every dirt road, every fishing spot, every old bridge teenagers used for late night hangouts. We didn't. It was mid-July, years before smartphones, and I was 19. My friend Mark had just gotten a used pickup, and all we wanted to do was drive. No destination, no plan, just windows down, music low, and the kind of aimless conversation you have when you're young and the night feels endless. Around 11 p.m., we crossed into the north end of the county, near the river. There was an old logging road out that way, narrow, overgrown, the kind of place where the tree canopy blocks out the moon. Mark slowed at the turnoff. You ever been down this way? Not since I was a kid, I said. There's nothing back there. That's what I'm counting on. He grinned and eased the truck onto the gravel. The sound of cicadas faded as we drove deeper. No streetlights, no houses, just the beam of our headlights cutting through the dust. After maybe 15 minutes, we came to a bridge, one of those narrow steel truss kinds with wood planks under the tires. The river below was black glass, not a ripple. Halfway across, Mark stopped. Why are we... I started, but he shushed me. Listen, he whispered. At first I heard nothing. Then, faintly, a single splash, like something heavy dropping into the water. We waited. Another splash, closer this time. I leaned out my window, but the river was just darkness. Then a voice called out from downstream. Help! It was faint, drawn out, like the person was far away. Did you hear that? Mark's hands were tight on the wheel. Yeah, I said, but my stomach was already twisting. Help! The voice again, exactly the same pitch, same tone. Mark put the truck in gear and drove across. On the other side, the road narrowed to little more than 2 ruts in the grass. The voice came again, now from the trees on our right. Help! We both knew something was wrong. People don't sound the same every time they yell. Mark didn't stop. We came to a fork in the road left back toward town, right deeper into the woods. Without discussing it, Mark turned left. That's when the headlights caught something moving between the trees. It was tall, maybe 7 feet, but thin, impossibly thin. Its arms hung low, swinging as it stepped back into the shadows. I think I stopped breathing. Mark floored it. We didn't talk the rest of the drive. When we finally hit pavement again, we realized the night had gone completely silent. No bugs, no frogs, no wind. I didn't go back to that road for years. When I finally did, in daylight, the bridge was gone. There was no sign it had ever been there. No concrete footings, no steel, nothing. But I still hear that voice sometimes on summer nights. And it still says my name the same way every time. Story 3. I grew up in a rural part of Georgia, the kind of place where summer nights smell like cut grass and warm dirt, and the air was heavy enough to stick to your skin. We had no city lights to drown out the stars, just an endless dome of darkness above, stitched with the pale shimmer of the Milky Way. Nights were slow there. People sat on porches long after the sun went down, nursing iced tea and fanning themselves with whatever junk mail they had on hand, watching fireflies blink lazily in the tall grass. And because the nights were slow, people talked. They told stories. Some were harmless, the kind passed down just to spook the kids into behaving. Don't go swimming in the quarry. There's a snapping turtle the size of a truck down there kind of thing. But others, well, those were told in quieter voices. My grandfather used to tell one of those. He called it the Lantern Man. The story was simple. Back in the Depression, a rail worker died in an accident along the tracks north of the town. Some said he'd been drunk, some said he'd been pushed, but everyone agreed his head had been severed by an oncoming train. His body was never found, but people swore that on certain summer nights, they saw him walking the back roads near the tracks, carrying a dim yellow lantern in one hand. He didn't move fast, but if you ever saw him behind you, you were supposed to keep walking and never look back twice. I believed it the way you believe in quicksand, enough to be cautious, but not enough to think it would ever matter. I never planned on testing it. It was the summer before my junior year of high school, late July, when my friend Jamie and I ended up testing it anyway. We'd gone to a bonfire out near Miller's Crossing, a wide dirt clearing where the local older kids and 20-somethings like to party. That night had been typical someone's dad's acoustic guitar making the rounds, a half-flat case of beer, the constant whine of mosquitoes. By midnight, people were packing up. Jamie and I had walked there from my place earlier, figuring it would be cooler than driving and easier to sneak back without waking my parents. By about 1 a.m., the fire had burned down to glowing coals, and only a handful of people were still hanging around. Jamie elbowed me. "You ready?" I nodded. We said our goodbyes and headed toward the gravel road. The air felt thicker than usual, the kind of heat that clings to the inside of your lungs. But walking home at night had never bothered me. County Road 9 stretched between Miller's Crossing and my neighborhood, 3 miles of cracked pavement, bordered by pine forest and open pasture. No street lights, no houses, just the moon, almost full, hanging low enough to tint the road in silver. We were maybe a mile in when I noticed the light. It was faint, far up ahead, hovering low to the ground. My first thought was a porch light, except I knew there were no houses along this stretch. Then I thought maybe it was a flashlight, but the color was wrong. It wasn't white, it was yellow, warm, the color of a candle flame behind old glass. And it swayed, like it was hanging from something. "Do you see that?" I asked. Jamie squinted. "Yeah, probably somebody walking." "Out here? At 1 in the morning?" He shrugged, but I could tell he was curious now too. We kept walking, eyes fixed on the light. It bobbed gently in the dark, sometimes dipping out of sight as the road rose and fell, then reappearing in the same spot. We never seemed to get closer. After 10 minutes, Jamie slowed to a stop. "This doesn't make sense. We've been walking toward it, but it's like it's staying the same distance away." I opened my mouth to respond, but before I could, the light went out. Just like that, we froze. The silence was sudden and absolute. The constant background chorus of crickets, cicadas, and frogs gone. Even the breeze had stopped. Then, from somewhere ahead of us, a boot scuffed on gravel. "Hello?" Jamie called, his voice too loud in the stillness. No answer. We waited. The darkness pressed in. Then the light came back, but it wasn't ahead of us anymore. It was behind us. I don't remember deciding to run. One moment we were staring at that glow. The next, my legs were moving. sneakers pounding the asphalt, breath tearing in and out of my chest. Jamie was right beside me. The glow followed. Not quickly, not like it was chasing us, just steady, almost lazy. Like whoever held it knew they didn't need to hurry. Half a mile from my driveway, I made the mistake of looking back. The lantern swung from a long, thin arm. Its holder was tall, taller than any person I'd ever seen, with hunched shoulders and a head bowed low. I couldn't see a face. I couldn't even see where the head ended and the shadows began. Jamie saw it too. "Don't stop," he gasped. We didn't. We barreled up my porch steps and slammed the door behind us. I locked it, then locked it again, my hands slick with sweat. Jamie stood at the window, peeking through the curtain. "Is it?" I started. He shook his head. "I don't see it anymore." We stayed up until dawn, neither of us speaking much. When the sun rose, it was almost easy to believe we'd imagined it. The next afternoon, I walked Jamie home in daylight. The road looked normal, the way it always had, cracked, faded, flanked by weeds and ditches. But halfway between our houses, I stopped. There were boot prints on the asphalt, wet boot prints. They were huge, easily twice the size of mine, and they stopped in the middle of the road, like whoever made them had just stepped out of existence. Jamie moved away the next year. We didn't talk much after that, though every once in a while, out of nowhere, I'd get a text from him in the middle of the night. Saw him again. No other words, no explanation. I still live here. I avoid that stretch of road in summer, but sometimes I catch the yellow glow at the tree line, swaying in the warm night air. Always just far enough away that I can tell myself it's something else. And I know deep down that if I ever stop pretending, he'll be closer than I think.